What is going on, Boda Sports World? It is Soggy Boy. I am coming at you for a little special I wanted to run. It is day 2 currently of the free agency tampering period. And now, obviously, you see what kind of hat I'm wearing. There have been rumors speculating in the Boda world that your boy is gonna jump ship. Well, guess what? That ain't happening. I said that if the Patriots got weapons, that I would support them. Now, to set the record straight here, okay, they still would have been my team. Okay, they still would have been my team. That wasn't going to change. What was going to change would have been the fact that, you know what, maybe I would have watched a couple other games and focused on other teams rather than just the Patriots. They still would have been my teams. I still would have watched their games. However, you know what? The Bills are winning the AFC East. I need to focus on them because I need the bigger picture. If the Patriots weren't going to do anything, then, I need to focus on other winning teams to make sure that I'm keeping up with the trends here. That being said, my boys went out and spent the second most amount of money in NFL history on free agency. Now, obviously, that's skewed because as the years go on, the more money you spend. But I mean, you're just looking at teams on that list, and it's teams like last year's Dolphins and the 2019 Jets. Obviously, the Jets aren't working out. Last year's Dolphins were, a really good example. They had spent the most amount of money in free agency, period. Coming up into, obviously, this year, which I believe the Patriots are going to break if they decide to sign anyone else. And they didn't make the playoffs, no. But everyone was very, very shocked at how well they were playing last year. And I think you're looking at a brand spanking new Patriots team that's gonna surprise a lot of people because you have these weapons now. And let me get into the transactions for you, and I'll break it down a little bit. All right. So what we have here, all right. So day 1 of free agency was or not even free agency technically. Free agency starts tomorrow, but contracts that were guaranteed and talked about was insane. I mean, as a Patriots fan, you should just be very excited that they went out and Belichick went out and he spent the money that he had. I mean, he hasn't done that in the past. But he knows where he's at now because he doesn't have Tom Brady. And he went out and he spent the money on pieces that we really needed. And it's a nice breath of fresh air. It should make you feel a lot better as a Patriots fan that he went out and he spent that kind of money. Not to mention, a lot of people are forgetting that we're having players coming back that opted out of last year. Donta Hightower, a big name. Yeah, he's 32. 33, he's getting up in age. He's still the leader on that defense in the middle of the field. So it's going to be a nice boost, not only to get these new players coming in, but to get our old players back. Obviously, one of them being Marcus Cannon, who was traded to the Texans. But we got a bunch of picks out of that, so I like that deal. Let me stay focused here, all right? So yesterday, Monday morning, the first splash of free agency tampering was Jonnu Smith. Jonnu Smith signed with the Patriots on a 4-year, $50 million deal. Now, I don't ever remember Belichick ever doing anything like this. Maybe like an Albert Hainsworth kind of thing, like a big name kind of free agent at the time. But, he doesn't go out and get these kind of guys, I mean, obviously big name Randy Moss, but he traded like a 5th-round pick for him because he wasn't doing anything on the Raiders. So, completely different story. Spending in free agency has not been his forte. So he gets Jonnu Smith. Jonnu Smith's only 25. I was big on Jonnu Smith in Tennessee. I loved him. I thought he was a great red zone threat, and I think that's only going to amplify what the Patriots are going to be able to do in the red zone. Now, again, I think everyone here knows my thoughts on Cam Newton. I don't think he's the answer. However, I did go back. I did run the tape back. Watching him before he got COVID, he was a completely different person. Now, are we going to get that same person before COVID? And, he was decent. All right. He kept the Patriots in that Seahawks game. I mean, there were 2 games where they fumbled where they could have won. So, there's a lot of differential that could have happened that could have made the Patriots 9-7 rather than 7-9. So it, obviously that's it's like that with any team. However, specifically looking at the Patriots, there were certain plays that changed the outcome of the game. For example, 4th and 1, last play of the game. If they score, they win. If they don't, they lose. So that is an example of a play that changes the game. And obviously Cam doesn't get in the end zone because they run that play, within 3 yards of every red zone opportunity that they have. So hopefully what Jonnu Smith means for the Patriots and, for us fans looking at it is that they're going to have options in the red zone. And that's going to be very important because Cam Newton only had 8 throwing touchdowns last year, and that is god-awful. Yes, he made up for it on the ground, but we need both. We can't have, a running quarterback that occasionally throws a touchdown. We need a quarterback that throws touchdowns that, he can also run the ball. We need the dual threat Cam Newton back. We can't just have the running Cam Newton. All right. And, looking at last year, again, plugging someone like Jonnu Smith in opens up the field a whole lot more than having someone like Ryan Izzo or even, Devin Asiasi or Dalton Keene because they're underdeveloped players. They haven't been developed in the system yet. So Jonnu Smith, the first signing, I love the signing. Sure. Maybe did they overpay for him? Probably. But I would argue he's a premium day one signing that he was going to get signed by someone else, probably for close to the same amount of money. All right. And you know what? The Patriots had the 3rd most cap space out of any teams coming into this free agency period. So I like the deal. They addressed a need. They went out and they got him for 4 years. So, they locked him up for a long-term deal. And, it guarantees that whoever the quarterback is for the future is going to have a weapon to utilize. So whether or not they draft a quarterback this year, they go after someone in free agency next year, or they trade for someone, they're going to have weapons because last year was abysmal. So, I guess looking at the grand scheme of things before I move on here is that Patriots team not only underperformed, but actually, you know what? Let me reverse that. That Patriots team was not as good as their record. All right. I don't think they were a 7-9 team. I think they realistically, there were a lot of mistakes on the field, and you don't usually see that from a Bill Belichick team. If you erase those mistakes, they very well could have been a 10-6, a 9-7 team. But that's what I expected from a team with Cam Newton and Julian Edelman off the field and no tight end and, a ton of players that opted out of their contracts for the season. It was an expected thing. I called that the Patriots were going to go 7-9. That would be their ceiling, and they hit 7-9. And I think 7-9 was their floor. So, just for me looking at that, it makes me a little optimistic. I think that, they need a quarterback. I don't think Cam is the solution, but if that's what they run with, I still think that they're going to be a much better team this year because of what they added, including Jonnu Smith. Let me move on. Don't put me on a pike for this. Davin Godchaux, possibly. I don't know how to say his name, but he is going to be slotted in probably as nose tackle, which is confusing because I thought Lawrence Guy was still with the team, but he might be. Oh, no, he is. So, Davin Godchaux, he was just signed by the Patriots, I believe, on a 2-year deal, which ultimately means Lawrence Guy is most likely on the way out. But Godchaux played 2 seasons under Flores, so he's probably going to have some familiarity with the Patriots' defensive scheme. I like the signing. I don't really know much about him, but I think obviously addressing that need is good. I kind of wish they went back after Malcolm Brown because I believe he got cut by the Saints. But getting a player like this is going to help them, especially with all of their other defensive pieces coming back from sitting out. It's going to help that run defense because they had the worst run defense in the league, and it wasn't even close. I mean, they were terrible. So let's hope that that Gottschalk gives them good size, helps protect the gaps, and we can at least get out of that bottom 5 spot of having a run terrible run defense. So I'm gonna give you guys some more I guess not less notable, but not day one free agent signings that were necessary. So cornerback Jalen Mills, he was signed. I don't know the deal off the top of my head, but Jalen Mills is he's a young corner. I think he's going to fit the system very well. Obviously our number 1 is going to be JC Jackson. Stephon Gilmore is still currently on the team, but they're most likely going to trade him. So you're going to have JC Jackson at that number 1, and Mills can slot in as a either a slot, or he could be number 2 depending on what he brings to the table. So it's going to be very interesting to see where he slots in. I like the move for Belichick. I think getting another younger corner in that has experience in the playoffs and obviously won a Super Bowl with the Eagles in 2017. It's going to be nice. Also getting some versatility because he also played safety for them in 2020 or last year, I believe. And obviously Belichick likes those like utility role players, people that can play multiple positions and know how to do multiple things on the field at the same time. So good signing. I like it. Let's move on. Let me give you some more. What do we got here? All right. Last night we had 2 wide receiver signings, Nelson Aguilar and Kendrick Bourne. Honestly, I was surprised by the Nelson Aguilar signing. I feel like it came out of nowhere. I really didn't see this happening. And he gives you down the field speed, but I feel like everyone knows that he drops passes like it's no one's business. Now, that's not to say that he even makes the roster. So yeah, they signed him to a contract, but he's going to have to fight for spots because, whether or not you like it, the Patriots wide receiver room is full. So they're only going to have some of these players actually stick. And, if Julian Edelman does play, they're going to put him in. And I think Jacoby Myers is another player that is a lock. Okay. So you have Edelman, you have Myers, and now you have an area where you don't really have a third receiver because you don't know what you get with N'Keal Harry. I mean, I feel like at this point you do, but you don't really know what he's like with a healthy quarterback and with him actually being healthy. You get someone like a Nelson Aguilar in, and it's the same thing with N'Keal Harry. He doesn't have the hands. And it's sad because N'Keal Harry is such a big body wide receiver, and he should be good with the 50-50 ball. But Cam's not the kind of quarterback that's just going to throw it up anymore. He's throwing short to medium passes, and he's running the ball way more than he really needs to. But now that he has weapons, obviously, I think that's going to get a lot better, hopefully. But Nelson Aguilar, I don't know why they would do that. I think maybe it's just taking a flyer out on him. We'll see. However, I do like the Kendrick Bourne signing. I think that's a great addition. Belichick loves undrafted rookies. He goes out for a guy like this. Kendrick Bourne in a system where Jimmy Garoppolo wasn't playing the whole time. The wide receiver room was just rotating. He was probably their best wide receiver last year. 50 catches, about 670 yards, only 2 touchdowns, but I like the production, especially from an undrafted rookie. He's going to be 26 this summer. And I'm very excited to see what he's going to bring to the table. I think Bourne sticks. I don't think Aguilar sticks, but I think Bourne is going to be in the Patriots rotation as a regular in the wide receiver spot, most likely a slot, but he can be a gadget player too because he has burner speed. So both of these wide receivers add speed. Obviously, Nelson Aguilar is more of a downfield speed player, but Kendrick Bourne can add speed, to any kind of play that they're going for. I'd be interested to see what they do with Aguilar, especially in the screen game. Who knows if he's going to even be able to catch the ball? So we will see. We will see. But we obviously have other big name free agents that have signed. I'm just trying to do the smaller ones, and then I'm going to break down the big ones here. So the Patriots also signed another defensive lineman. They signed Henry Anderson of the Jets. Again, I like the moves on defensive line to give them more size to stop the run. I think they're going to be fine on pass rush. I think what their weakness is they were last in rushing defense. So they need to address that. And I think he did. I think he did a good job of addressing that. And I think you're going to see a completely different Patriots run defense next year. Does it make them number one? God, no. I mean, you always will have the Bucs defense that will just not let you run anywhere. But, I don't see them being a bottom 5 unit anymore, especially with the players that are coming back. So we're going to see, obviously, what the season brings us, not until September. So we're going to see. But let's get into the other 2 big name signings, obviously, one of them being today. But yesterday, the Patriots signed Matthew Judon of the Ravens. I believe they gave him a 4-year deal. I should have this shit up. My fault, guys. They gave him a 4-year deal. And I at first I didn't think it was a good idea, but then I really looked into it. He was a valuable asset to that Ravens team. Even if it didn't show up in the stat column. I mean, he had 34.5 sacks. He was a 5th-round player from 2016. He's not going to be your sack producer. He adds some leverage in the sack category, but it's going to be nice to have another outside player coming in that has had, success in a system that has a perennial good defense. So it's going to be nice to see that. I think that only bolsters the linebacking core, especially with Donta Hightower coming back. I like him and Chase Winovich and Josh Uche. I think that's a great combo. I think you're getting a guy in here who's, he's 28. He's technically dipping into that veteran status. But he's still in that area where he's got a lot left in the tank. And I think this is a good signing. I think it's going to, again, help their run defense, but it's also going to help you in that pass rush department because you have your linebackers are looking very good. And let me get to the last signing, obviously, happened this morning. Patriots went double dip. They're going Gronk. They're going Hernandez again. Hunter Henry signs with the team. I believe it was a 3-year, $27-something million deal. I was like, okay, this morning I saw that. I'm like, that's bizarre. I don't understand why they would do that. And then you think back to double tight end sets and how good those Patriots teams were with the double tight end set. And you think it back to, the year that Matt Castle was quarterback, 2008, and, he didn't have that, still went 10-6. But then the year that they didn't make the playoffs in 2010, I believe, or whatever, and they lost to the Jets, they had that. And, they were still good. My point is that you don't have Brady anymore. Now you have this double tight end set. And you're getting size, you're getting downfield ability, but you're also getting more blocking from your tight ends. I don't think the tight end blocking last year, I think, was just abysmal. I think it was last place in the league. And I think adding, obviously, these 2 tight ends, obviously is going to help for downfield production. It's obviously going to help with the passing game. It's going to help in the run game, too. And I think that's a big thing that people are missing, is that the Patriots tight ends are not good. You signed Jonnu Smith, you signed Hunter Henry, you're getting the blocking with it. And I think that's that again, a huge factor of why we miss Gronk so much. He wasn't the downfield threat that he was in the past, but he still could block, and he could block the best of them. I mean, just look at what he did with Aaron Donald in the Super Bowl 3 years ago. I mean, he was able to block him one-on-one for some plays. And, he did that with other players as well, and not just Aaron Donald, but I think it's going to be a huge asset to have them in there for the run game as well. And it's going to help to give the Patriots some, offensive anonymity. I can't say that word. More or less. That they can have Jonnu Smith out there and have Hunter Henry out there and still keep teams on their toes as to what they're going to go. If you have Jonnu Smith out there and you're running 60% of the time, they're going to go, oh, well, Jonnu Smith comes out here, we're probably going to run. Right. But what about Hunter Henry? You know what I mean? The same thing. We can switch them in and out. When you have the tight ends last year, I mean, they weren't utilized at all. So not only were they not a factor, we're not reading into them as much because they don't care, because they're not a factor. These guys are going to be a factor. So they're going to be able to utilize them way more than they did their tight ends last year. And they're going to be able to have some anonymity. I don't know if I'm saying that right. You guys will have to roast me in the comments. It's fine. On offense and really be able to switch things up. I think getting these weapons will hopefully reinvigorate Josh McDaniels, because last year was just abysmal. So let's see what they do. But like I said, all of those signings happened obviously yesterday, with the exception of Hunter Henry, who signs today. Being a Patriots fan, it was very surprising. It was a very, not to like call James here, but it was a very Browns-esque moment for me, going and being, this was the most excited I was all season, was to sign all these players. And you know what? That's how that's how it's going to be now, because the dynasty's over. So we move on. This is what gets me excited now, is seeing all of these free agents wanting to play for the Patriots. I mean, it just shows you that last year sucked. They still went 7-9. And they didn't have an easy schedule by any means. They really didn't. So the fact that they did go 7-9, was a testament. I mean, I would say that, Cam Newton was not great last year. Team still won 7-9. I think their ceiling moves up now because of all these additions, especially with the two tight ends and getting some help at wide receiver. I think the defense is good. I like the pieces that they're adding on defense to help them with that run game. But I really like the signings on offense. I don't understand Nelson Aguilar. I don't think anyone does. But I like the Kendrick Bourne signing. I love the Hunter Henry, and I love the Jonnu Smith signing. I mean, like I said, I was big on Jonnu Smith. I think my most underrated tight end signing would be Hunter Henry, and he comes on to my team. So I'm very excited to see what both of these guys can add to the offense, especially with the run blocking game. I think that's going to be huge, especially for someone like Damian Harris, who had a breakout season last year. He's only got up to go. I think, James White looks like he's on the out. Most likely will sign somewhere else. And so you have someone like Damian Harris. You still have Sony Michel, who's whatever. They're most likely still going to go out and sign another running back to kind of that satellite role, and we'll see what they do. But, for what they have right now, just after yesterday and into this morning, very exciting time to be a Patriots fan. We're getting to see what Belichick does with the money that he wants. We can see now, finally, this is what Belichick does when he has money in free agency. He goes out and he gets big name players, which is crazy because, in the past he hasn't done that. I would argue because he never really had the money, but we can go back and we can argue that until, the sun goes down. So, I would say, looking at other things here, Trent Brown obviously was traded back to the Patriots, so that's a good thing. Trent Brown was traded back to the Patriots. I like that move. I think that's going to help them a lot again. Obviously, with the departure of Joe Tooney going to the Kansas City Chiefs and Marcus Cannon going to the Texans. So we're going to see. We'll see if they keep David Andrews. And they have a ton of other free agents that it looks like may go as well, including James White, possibly Damiere Byrd. Who knows? But yeah, the Patriots still have a ton of free agents left to sign. They still have a couple linebackers. Obviously, Nick Folk is someone that they need to look into signing again. Brian Hoyer is a free agent, which, I really could care less. What interests me is seeing Jason McCourty on there. We'll see if they bring him back now that they have Jalen Mills in there. But obviously, I think the big names here are going to be James White, our Lawrence guy, who is definitely he's most likely going to go now that they brought on a couple defensive tackles. And your David Andrews. David Andrews is still unsigned, and he is your offensive line captain. I would like to see them re-sign him, but who knows if that's going to happen. So we're going to have to wait and see. But thank you guys so much for tuning in. As always, I'm Soggy Boy from Boda. Those are my thoughts on the Patriots signings and trades and, the free agents that are still out there for the Patriots. But I would say one more signing I'd love to see to really, I would say, wrap up that wide receiver room. I would love to see Curtis Samuel come back. I think having him and Damiere Byrd as kind of the connection that Cam had with them when he played on the Panthers, obviously, I think that would be a huge boost to his morale, and I think that's going to help the system really gel together. Is it going to happen? Probably not. They already went out and spent a lot of money. Who knows if they're going to get Curtis Samuel on a deal like that? They definitely need a wide receiver one, but we'll see. We'll see if it happens. I mean, because you do have those big name tight ends, and we're going to see what happens with them. So, again, thank you so much for tuning in. You know where to find us: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Our podcasts are on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. Look for our YouTube page. Go to our website, bodasports.news, or the Bodasports Podcast.news or .wordpress or something like that. That one's new. Don't mind me on that one. But, guys, check out our new YouTube intro. It's just going to be a quick rundown of how our YouTube page works, what content we got on there, and I guess just a really stupid photo that's, I'm proud of because I made it on camera, so whatever. But anyways, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Those are my thoughts on the Patriots signings for free agency. Hopefully I'll see you again if they do anything else. Stay soggy.